Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I thought I'd sit down and show you my GCSE art folders. I had them back a couple of weeks ago, but I hadn't really got around to showing them or really looking through them at all because everything has just been so hectic, but I thought I'd sit down and show you them now. So I'm just going to get straight into the video because this could potentially be a very long video. If you saw my video back in April, I think, or May, I did go through this art folder, but honestly I don't think it was a good video, so I'm going to link it down below, but I'm going to show you again and talk through it properly because I did a voiceover, and with a voiceover you can't really get across what you want to say, but I will go through that one quite a lot more quickly because you have already seen it. But that just wasn't a good video and it wouldn't be complete if I didn't show you my whole GCSE in one video. So yeah, so a bit of background. I was predicted an A star ever since year 10 actually. My art teacher always marked my work as an A star. However, I actually got an A, which was, I'm not going to say it was a disappointment because I kind of didn't think my work was of an A star standard, but I kind of just trusted my teacher. Obviously I don't know if we accidentally missed something as a class or we got moderated and someone was overmarked, so they've moved everybody down, which is what I think happened because everyone went down a grade from their predicted. So yeah, but honestly I'm not too bothered. I'm not doing art this year, which I almost did do actually. Didn't do art, obviously. An A is still good, and I did send off for a remark, but I didn't move up, so yeah. So I was on the exam board Gcse. I know a lot of people are on AQA, but you know, art is art, so if anything gives you inspiration, then that's still a good thing. So this is my year 10 folder, which I just thought I would pop in here because I do quite like this folder, or at least the front page. We never use portfolios, we always use these A3 books, and I use them on a landscape guide, and I'm thinking of moving all my work into one folder and using these for history mind maps because these are just such a good size. But my front page in here was just a load of shells, and this was all practice for our GCSEs. I'm just going to flick through it quickly because obviously none of it's relevant and I don't really like a lot of it. And I love that. Block design. I also thought it would be nice to show you guys these, even if you guys aren't interested in my project. If you're doing art and you don't have any ideas of materials to use, I can give you some ideas potentially. So this was all just kind of, obviously I did this in year 10, this was like a practice portfolio for our real ones. So got some lino prints, a really shoddy painting which is just awful, some really dodgy lino prints, that's Dover Castle actually. Got a painting of a waterfall, my arm is actually going to snap. I love these eyes. Actually, I only like that eye, the other ones aren't very good. But yeah, that's my year 10 folder. Obviously, it's not of very high quality. I don't know why the hell I was predicting an A star, to be honest. Okay, I'm going to run through this in a lot more detail because obviously this is actually my GCSE folder. Obviously, you've already seen this one, so this will be in the less detail than my exam folder, but this is my coursework folder, which was 60% of my grade. I don't actually have either of my final pieces with me. I've got they're both at my mum's house, and I actually don't really like either of them very much, which is a shame because with art you kind of had to like adjust your work to make it match your theme, which meant you didn't really like your final piece as much because it was there to fit a theme rather than just something you liked, which is why I chose not to do it this year because art was just so like, you had to make everything link up, like all your artists, you had to have artist influence, and I'm like, I don't want to be influenced by artists, I want to be influenced by my like imagination and creativity. So yeah, I just don't like the way that the curriculum is, so that is why I'm not doing it this year. So this is my coursework folder. Obviously my theme was contrast, so I ended up doing urban, rural and colour contrast, and then like physical contrast as well. So we did a little still life project at first, and I started off by getting inspiration. So these were some of the photos which I got off the internet. I wasn't really sure what I was doing, so I just kind of got a bit of everything, and then I kind of decided to go with an urban rural theme, which is obviously what I did in the end. But I wanted to work with like sunsets, so I got some pictures of sunsets which I've had on my laptop for a while. And there were some primary photos, and then these were the other primary photos. So these were all my urban photos. Most of them are in London actually, and Camden. Actually, they're literally all in London. And then I've got my rural photos, which are mostly in Devon and in Worcestershire. Got some photos I printed out here, then I tried doing some studies of them. So this is in Camden, and these were some buildings which were being demolished, and I thought they looked really cool. But I was really proud of that drawing, and then I ruined it with watercolour on the other side. Then they were some trees which I drew. And then I've got a bit of Carnaby Street and then some more trees. So I've got a mixture of urban and rural here. And for here I use watercolour and colour pencil. I use colour pencil and soft pastels here. I did a paper collage here and coloured pencils on that one of Carnaby Street. For this one, this is much better actually. I got a picture of the London Eye, and then I tried to sew it. It was not very good. We're going to ignore that, but that's basically embroidery with a button. I think it's called etching, but you have, you did it when you were a kid, but basically when you had the black paint and you could go through and make something, and I really like this, not gonna lie. I think I used a needle or a pin or something to get it so precise, but that is basically that again. I went and did some more primary studies of those two pictures, so another kind of etching thing of the London Eye, and then I did some tissue paper and watercolour, and tissue paper I realised makes really cool sunsets, so I did that, and then I did the London Eye, but I kind of mucked it up and had to cover it in Tipex, which is just great. And then this was a nail varnish version of that tree thing. I honestly hate it. I do not know why the hell I did it. And then I tried to do batik, which also didn't work, so that's always good. I realised I'm going through this really slowly, so I'm going to try and speed up a bit. This is my intention, so I wrote out what I wanted to do and how I was going to do it, and kind of my initial thoughts. And then I started my artist studies, which I am going to run through quickly because they're shocking. So basically I took 4 artists, and I printed out a picture of their work and just copied it with 4 different materials, and then wrote a bit about the original piece. So that was for my first artist, which was called Kevin Hill, Bing Bright. And then I did Jeff Pittman, who I actually really liked his work, but I couldn't replicate it because I was rubbish at art. And then finally I did Joe Cartwright. They were my improved studies because honestly some of them were so bad. And over summer I picked up some more primary photos, so I had more of London, Cambridge, Northern Ireland. Then we started on design ideas. So we had to do 3 design ideas, and then we had to develop one of our design ideas further to be our final piece. So my first design idea, I kind of printed out photos of my inspiration, which was my artist, and then my own pictures here, and then I just wrote a bit about it and annotated it. And then I basically drew up an idea of what it could be, which was this, which is rubbish. Yeah, and I took a photo of it and photoshopped it to make it look a bit more how I wanted it to look, and just annotated it a bit more. And then to fill in some space towards the end, I decided to just try doing this, which I think is so cool, not gonna lie. So that's a different version of it. And then this version, I collaged a load of different pieces to create a different kind of city. I don't like that whatsoever. And this is my second design idea, which I also don't particularly like, so I decided to contrast rich and poor, because I had this photo in Cambridge of these really nice Victorian terraces, and then obviously the dodgy ones in Camden, which were about to be demolished. So I thought I'd put them on either side of a street, and then put a cool sunset behind it. Honestly, it was an awful idea, it looked rubbish, but we're just going to move past that. My final design idea was a paper collage of this, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do, and this was the night before maybe. But I did some further development, so I decided to use a different photo. And then I practiced with some more materials, so I practiced with gouache, and I practiced with felting and lino printing. And I kind of explained why I wanted to try each one and what I thought of the final outcome. And then I did some gouache painting and some watercolour painting, and I used tissue paper as a background on that. And I just did some testers of materials. I don't know why, it was very pointless. And I wrote about the outcome. And then I tried doing some houses with different materials as well. And then I did a gouache painting. I painted some trees at the side to show that I could paint trees better than that. Then I kind of just improvised my final piece, which that ended up being my final piece. So it's basically a really big on a canvas, and it's just the trees with Florence below it. My original final piece, then I decided to try and put it onto a lino print. which is basically what these are, but these are the ones that didn't work very well, so I just put them in as testers. And then I obviously annotated them. And these are also the other ones that didn't go very well, and then some of them I used crayons. And then, yeah, this is the final one. So obviously this isn't very, like, huge, but basically this was a second one, an additional one to try and get me some extra marks. And then I wrote a bit about it at the side, and then I did my final evaluation, which is really long, and that is my coursework, which was definitely not worth an A star. Okay, and then this was what I was really proud of, not gonna lie. This is my exam work, which was worth 40%, and we had to spend 5 hours in silence doing our exam. And not gonna lie, I really enjoyed doing this work, but this was, I think this got 50 marks out of 60, so both of these got an A. I think I did more work in that, but I did better quality work in this. This was the title page, very interesting, I know. And I started off once again by doing a mind map. So I took some pictures of Pinterest of still life and what I could do. I got some artist pictures and some initial ideas, and then some different materials which I could use. And then I did that my intentions thing again. I got some pictures of flowers to put around the edges. So obviously I went through here and said what I wanted to do. I was so proud of these. I spent hours collecting these photos. So basically, I've got my made objects up here, which is mostly food, and then I've got my natural forms here. Basically, in made objects, I've got like sweets, ice cream, biscuits, perfume, my sister's phone, some pegs. And then in natural forms, I've got butterflies, shells, flowers, cacti, rocks, all sorts. I started off with primary studies, so I did 2 pages of each. So on my first one, I did a primary study of some pegs. I took a picture of these pegs, and I did a tonal version and a gouache version. That wasn't my best work, however, I still really like it. And then I did a watercolour shell. I mean, everyone likes a good watercolour shell. You can't really go wrong. And then this took me hours, but I loved doing it. So basically I had this really cool photo of 2 glasses, and the light was hitting them in a really cool way. And it was like sunset, and then there was like a little reflection in the background, so I drew that tonally. As more primary studies, I got a picture of a French fancy, you know, a party ring, and I painted it in all sorts of different ways just because I wanted to show that I could use different materials on the same thing and see how they work different. And then I did these Egyptian perfume bottles. What are you doing? So I just basically, I think I went over them in biro, and then I painted it in like a cool artsy way. They look quite Tumblr, I actually really like those. And this was my natural forms selection section. So I started off by doing my flower in acrylic paint, which I used pencils to do this flower, and I also used pencils on this cactus. And then I used a collage of watercoloured paper to do a picture of this, and more coloured pencils on this. I had this picture of a cactus, and then I just drew a butterfly. This is my artist studies. So the first artist I did was called Deborah Sisson, and I took this flower photo and I basically did a circle of each type of material. So I've got crayons, coloured pencil, watercolour and oil pastel. If the angle has changed, it's because my camera ran out of storage, so I had to like go from delete everything, but I am back. So basically after I had done all my studies, I moved on to artist studies, and obviously I said I meant about that, and then I went through and kind of talked about the piece and how it could inspire my final piece and my favourite aspects of it. After that I went and did Vincent Monaco, and he did cacti, so I painted some cacti because I really wanted to do some cacti in my final piece. However, I didn't actually do cacti, but I wanted to experiment with them and in his style. So I did gouache and coloured pencil, and then in the thing here I wrote about the artist and about the piece and like how I could take inspiration from it. Thirdly, I did Dorothy Lorenz. I didn't want to do glass jars, but I wanted to experiment with light. So I basically did gouache, oil pastels, watercolours, coloured pencil, and obviously I wrote about the artist and about the work. So I think I spoke about how I liked using reflections, and I put some of her other work in here because she also did fruit, but I'm not a fan of fruit. And then finally I did Joel Penkman, who I found from Pinterest. And I loved his work so much that I did like loads of studies on it. So He's got this one of a row of biscuits. This is, I did gouache, crayons, oil pastels, coloured pencil and watercolour. And then down here I did gouache and coloured pencils, and I did coloured pencils and soft pastels. And I just love food, so this was great. And then I did loads about him because I really liked everything, and I was obviously doing 3 pieces. So I did about the artist and about the pieces here. And then I took further primary photos because we were now on to planning our design ideas. So I took inspiration from all my artists. So I took a load of pictures of biscuits, which is like half the page, not gonna lie. Took pictures of butterflies. And I actually had to go out and buy all these biscuits, and me and my mum had a great evening just taking photos of biscuits. It was so good. I took photos of cacti, and then I got some like pieces of glass, and then I put like feathers and flowers and stuff in them and took photos of those. Then I moved on to design ideas. So this was actually my least favourite design idea, but basically I found pictures of cups and cacti which were from my artists, and that was just a picture that I didn't study, but it was from an artist. And then I took my primary photos of those and I compiled them and took a photo of that, which I copied into that. Then my second design idea was obviously this Joel Pankman guy who I was obsessed with, and I basically painted with gouache. I basically painted with gouache his picture again, which I liked, but with my own pieces of like food. So obviously this was his, and then I photographed my own and stuck them on the paper. So mine was like of different food and different lighting. And then I stuck some butterflies on top because obviously my theme was this made and natural objects. So these are all the made objects, and then natural, I kind of had to stuff these on. And that's what I was talking about earlier, how you have to stick things into your work to make it match the theme, even though you don't like it. And that's what I don't like about it, because obviously I really liked the work, but I didn't want to stick butterflies on top of it. So, and then my final design idea was kind of a filler one, but I decided to do something like some peacock feathers and some lilies in a glass jar and work with light. So when I took the photos, I used loads of lamps and some cool like vases, and I stuffed some lilies and some fake flowers in, and took some photos of some peacock feathers. And this was my practice. Obviously, as I said earlier, there's we had to develop everything a bit further, so I decided to work with clutter. So I got some pictures of clutter which I had from earlier, so some pegs and some food, and I cluttered a load of biscuits together, and basically I painted that onto there onto paper with gouache and onto canvas with gouache, and I obviously stuck the butterflies on top. This took me a whole day, it was not fun. Then I practiced painting the butterflies, and then I just practiced with some more materials just to check that I was happy with gouache. And then basically in the exam I did this, but on A3, which was really fun actually, I really enjoyed it. So this is basically what I did. This was my final evaluation, which is so long. Spent like literally 2.5 hours writing this, and that is just a printout of what I had done, and this is what I copied off, and that's what I traced for my final piece. And that's it. Now that I've shown you my art folders, I'm just going to talk through like some general tips. So obviously try and show a range of materials and skills, which is why I used so many materials. Obviously it didn't get me an A star, but I don't know what I would have needed to have done to have improved, to be quite honest. I feel like with my work I did a lot of little things with less effort, and I think it would be better to do less big things with more effort, and less writing, less printing stuff out, and more just art. And I don't feel like there was a lot of art in my folder, which could have been part of the reason. I did use a lot of printouts and annotation to explain to the examiner my process, but I don't actually know if they read them. I feel like they probably didn't bother, so I mean obviously they might have done, but I wrote a lot, and I think I spent more time writing and explaining my process than just doing art and making it like unique and different, because I feel like my stuff was very generic as well, not as imaginative. So yeah. So that is basically my 3 art folders all shown and done. I hope you guys found this interesting, and I'll see you very, very soon for a brand new video. Bye!